Do not get a 50-year mortgage until you watch this video. The United States is facing an unaffordability problem. Things are expensive. Incomes are not keeping up, and layoffs are rising because of artificial intelligence. And over the last week, the Trump administration has come together with a three-step proposal to try to make things more affordable in the United States. But if you don't understand this, it can end up hurting you more than it will help you. So let me break this down one by one. That way you understand what's going on, understand the risks, and not get caught up in the trap. Starting with a 50-year mortgage, and let's just go through some numbers. If you buy a $500,000 house today, you put 20% down, $100,000, and you finance the other $400,000 at a 6.5 mortgage rate over 30 years. It's going to cost you $2,500 a month. But if you get a 50-year mortgage now, instead of paying $2,500 a month, you're going to pay 2,250美元 a month, which sounds good because that means you're saving about $250 a month. But the part that you're missing with, that is how much additional money you're going to be paying in interest to the bank. In that 30-year mortgage, you're going to pay a total of $900,000 to buy the $500,000 house. So you're going to pay $500,000 for the house, plus $400,000 in interest over those 30 years. With a 50-year mortgage, you're going to pay $1.35 million to buy that same $500,000 house. So you're going to pay $500,000 for the house, plus an additional 85万美元 in interest to the bank. So this 50-year mortgage makes the banker richer. Now, there's a couple things that I want you to understand, and I want you to understand both sides. For most people, this 50-year mortgage is a horrible, horrible, horrible idea because you're going to end up paying way more money in interest. You're never going to pay off your house. You're never going to own the house. It's going to be owned by your bank. On the flip side, the argument is, well, the average homeowner in the United States only lives in their house for 12 years. So, if you only live there for 12 or 13 years and you sell it, aren't you going to save some money? And then you can invest the difference. Because if you can invest that additional $250 a month into the S&P 500, into the stock market, into whatever, that can make you more money than the 6 and 12% that you're paying on the mortgage. Yes, in theory, that works. But the problem is, most people are not going to actually do that. It's the same argument with the 15-year mortgage or the 30-year mortgage. If you could just pay the 15-year mortgage, but then get the 30-year mortgage instead, and then invest the difference, you'd be a lot wealthier. But the problem is, most people buy their house thinking that this is the biggest investment of their life. They pour all their extra money into the house, into the mortgage payments, into the insurance, into the property taxes, into the maintenance, into the upgrades, and have little to no money left over to invest. How do I know that? Because 7 out of 10 Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and the majority, over 50% of homeowners who bought houses in the last 6 years have financial regrets about that homeowner purchase. Why? Because of the additional cost of home ownership. So we think that buying this house is going to make us wealthy, when in reality, this house ends up being a trap for a lot of people if you don't know how to afford the house. My goal is for you to build wealth. I don't care how you do it. I just want you to become wealthy and not work hard, to just make your banker richer. Now, there are ways to use mortgages and a 50-year mortgage strategically, but for most people, that's just not going to work statistically. Now, on the topic of investing, I do want to remind you that for those of you that are investors or want to become investors, I have a brand new free investing masterclass where I walk you through how you can get started as an investor and find hidden investment opportunities before everybody else. It's a free master class. There's a ton of value in there. And I'll also lay out the exact framework that my firm and I use to research investment opportunities before they hit the headlines. Plus, as a bonus, when you register for the master class, you're also going to get access to market briefs, which is my newsletter for investors for free as a rare complimentary bonus. So if you want to get the investing masterclass and market briefs all for free, all you have to do is register. And I have the link for you down in the description below. The third thing that the Trump administration has proposed is a potential $2,000 tariff rebate check, a stimulus check, essentially. Now, the whole idea behind this is the Trump administration has imposed a lot of tariffs in 2025, and we have brought in a record number of tariff revenue in 2025. And in order to help compensate with all the higher costs, President Trump has hinted at the idea of giving some this money back in the form of a check. And it's different than the previous stimulus checks, because the previous stimulus checks were funded through deficit spending, meaning the United States government had to go into debt to find the money to fund those stimulus checks. Here, what President Trump is saying is we have so much money from tariffs that we can give some of this money back to American taxpayers in the form of this rebate check. Now, there's a couple things I want you to understand. It is anticipated, according to the White House, that in 2025, the United States government could generate up to $300 billion in tariff revenue in 2025. So, the question is, how much is the government going to potentially give out in this stimulus check? Well, if the cut off is you have to make under $100,000 a year to qualify for the stimulus check, that means there's about 150 million American adults who could potentially qualify. 150 million American adults times $2,000. Each is $300 billion, which would essentially mean all of the tariff revenue would have to be used to pay off this $2,000 check, unless it's more stringent requirements. Now, again, I don't know what the requirements are going to be. I'm just throwing out hypothetical numbers. What we know is that the Treasury Secretary has said that they anticipate $300 billion of tariff revenue. We don't know who could potentially qualify for this stimulus tariff rebate check. But just understand that if these tariff checks do go out, they're probably going to spur spending, and that spending benefits somebody. Now, you might think, well, if I get a $2,000 check, that means I have more money to spend. That's good for me. Well, the most expensive kind of money is free money, because when you go and you spend that money at Amazon and Apple and Lululemon and Louis Vuitton and at Chipotle, somebody else is benefiting, and it's the owners of those companies. And this is where I want you to understand who is the winner with everything that we talked about. If there's a 50-year mortgage, if there's a 15-year car loan, who's benefiting? It is the banks, because that means they're going to make way more interest. See, when you get a mortgage, it is advertised. And what that means in plain English is it is front-loaded with interest. So, if you're paying $2,000 a month in your mortgage payment, it's not half of that, $1,000 going to principal, meaning the value of your house to pay off the house, and $1,000 going to interest. That's not how it works. It is the vast, vast majority of that $2,000 is going in interest into your banker's pocket, and then a small piece of that is going towards the principal value of your house. And so if you get a 30-year fixed rate mortgage today, it takes almost 20 years out of your 30-year mortgage before half of your monthly mortgage payment is going to principal, which means you're paying for year 1, year 2, year 3, year 10, year 15, year 18. where more than half of your payment is going directly into your banker's pockets. So now, if you do a 50-year mortgage, we can just do the math. That means more money going directly into your banker's pocket with interest year after year after year. So yes, you have a lower monthly payment, but you're going to be paying more money in interest, which means the winner would be the banks, who now are going to be making more interest money. Same with car loans. People don't keep car for years. And so if people are now financing their cars for 15 years, well, the banks are going to be getting rich because now they're getting interest on something that doesn't even exist anymore. When it comes to this $2,000 stimulus, tariff, rebate, check, call it whatever you want, who is the winner? Again, it's the investors. Because if you go and you're spending money at Walmart, Chipotle, Amazon, Lululemon, Gucci, don't care where, the real winner is the owner of those investments because the money is flowing to the investor. That's how our economic system works. So if you want to go out and buy a house, I want you to think about your house less of an investment decision and more of a can you afford it decision. And if you can afford it, go out and buy a house. And when I say afford a house, you got to afford 3 things. Number 1, you have to be able to afford the down payment. That means have at least 20% to put down. I know it's a lot, but you want to have some real skin in the game for the house that you're going to live in. So you're buying a $500,000 house. That's $100,000 cash to put down. Number 2 is you have to be able to afford the monthly payments. And the way that I like to look at this is not what the banks do. I like to look at this with your spending plan, with your financial plan. If you're following my 751510 plan, which says for every dollar that you earn from here on out, 75 cents is the maximum that you can spend, 15 cents is the minimum you invest, and 10 cents is the minimum you save. That means 75 cents of every dollar that you earn is the maximum you can spend. And out of that 75 cents, you have to pay for your mortgage, your insurance, your property taxes, plus your groceries, plus your car, plus whatever else. And if you can afford your mortgage in /there, then go out and buy that house. And then part number 3 is you have to be able to afford the move in costs. Because when you buy a house, what ends up happening is not only now do you potentially be movers to move into the house, which are more expensive than you might think, but now you might need new furniture. You might want to upgrade the kitchen. You might want to build a patio or a deck. You might want to finish the basement. This is what I call the move in cost. And a lot of times we forget about that, or we think, oh, when I move into the house, it's already ready to go. And then 2 months later, you realize the AC doesn't work. That's the move in cost. Having the extra money to help you get fully moved in and settled into the house. If you can afford those 3 things, the down payment, the mortgage payment, and the moving cost, you can afford to buy a house. When it comes to your car, buy your car with cash, period. If you're wealthy and now you can justify leasing it, then go out and lease it. There's specific tax games that you can play once you become more wealthy when you lease a car. But again, for most people, buy your car with cash. And now, when it comes to buying things, if you do get the stimulus, check. I want you to be smart with it and understand how you can win with the stimulus check. Because the real way that you can win is not by going out and buying a new pair of AirPods or a new laptop, unless you're going to use it for your business. The way that you win is by taking that money and using it smartly, building some emergency savings, paying off your credit card, debt, paying off your other debt, investing the money. This is how you are paying yourself, making yourself wealthier. Instead of taking that money and not going to Amazon and making Amazon richer. The name of the game to become wealthy is to use your money to make yourself rich before you make everybody else rich. And the reason why so many people get stuck financially is because we get caught up in the game of working hard to make other people rich. Now, I get it. There's a lot of things that are involved in this system. There's a lot of things that make it difficult for people to build wealth. But at the end of the day, if you cannot control your spending, you can never earn enough to bypass and beat bad spending habits. You have to know how to spend your money smartly. And that means you need to know how to have money to save and invest before you spend all of your money. That is really the root key to building wealth. If you have money to save and invest, you now have the ability to build wealth because now you have money to go out and actually invest. If you spend all of your money, you are working hard every single day to make other people rich. If you want to make yourself rich, you have to make that money, not spend all of it. Take the money that you don't spend and then invest it into assets that are going to work to make you money even when you're not working. That is how you become wealthy. It's not easy. It doesn't happen overnight. I talk about a decade of sacrifice, which means it's not going to happen in 6 months or a year or 2 years, but a decade. If you can go through a decade of spending less and earning more to invest like crazy, you will be able to live a completely different financial life. And notice how most people on the internet will never talk about working hard for a decade because we get caught up in the idea of how do you get rich in 6 months? Everybody wants to get rich fast. Trust me, I get it. Who wants to wait 10 years to build wealth? But if you actually want to build wealth, it takes time. It takes hard work. It takes sacrifice. There's no way around that. And I know people on the internet who want to sell you a program are going to keep showing for you how easy it is and how simple it is if you just buy this simple system. But the reality is wealth comes through hard work, through time, through compounding. That's actual wealth. Now, I get it. You can be lucky, but most people are not going to get lucky. You're going to have to actually earn your way there. So, if you want to become wealthy, understand the way you do that is not by buying a house. Your house is not what's going to make you wealthy. Your house is there to make you memories. Think of your house like a liability. And now you're going to have the ability to really become wealthy. Because the mistake that so many people make is they buy their house thinking once I own my house clear, I am going to be wealthy because now I have generational wealth that I can pass down. The problem with that is, don't forget, after you pay off the house, you still have property taxes. You still have insurance. And if your house goes up in value because you bought in a great area, you bought it at a great time, your property taxes just went up. Your insurance just went up. And if you cannot continue paying the higher property taxes and the higher insurance, you may be forced to sell the house. And we've seen this happen time and time again. You've heard the stories. I bought this house for $200,000. Now it's worth $1.5 million. I can't afford the property taxes, so I have to sell. Now, sure, yeah, you made a lot of money when you sell, but remember, the goal with your house that you live in isn't to make money. It's to make memories. And when you think about it like that, now you're not going to overpay for the house. Now you're going to have money to actually invest into other assets. Things like stocks, things like ETFs, things like index funds, things like rental properties, things like gold, things like crypto, things like startups. That way, now you can put your money into other assets that are solely there to make you money because your house that you buy is not solely there to make money. It's there to make memories. So you have to understand that distinction. And when you understand that you're going to start to make smarter financial decisions, again, if you want to learn more about how you can start investing and find better investment opportunities, I have my free investing masterclass for you down in the description. But I want you to be aware that just because something is a cheaper mortgage payment, a cheaper car, loan payment, does not mean it's cheaper for you. You want to understand the point, total cost of ownership. And yes, there are strategic ways to use it to your advantage. But for most people, it's not a good idea. For most people, you want to be avoiding this type of consumer debt. That way, you can use your money not to pay the bank more interest, but to use your money to buy more assets that can make you wealthy instead of just making the bankers richer. And from an investment standpoint, if all this goes through, you bet banks are going to be loving it and they're going to be making a lot more money. So, understand? The way the system works, understand how these things work, and understand that sometimes when people sell you the idea of more affordable and easier access, it doesn't always mean it's better. That's why your financial education is so important. And with that, I will see you on YouTube